The phone line now with the Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party, Mr. Richard Ahiagbah. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much indeed for your time. How are you?
I'm well, my brother. How are you?
I am greater than Accra.
Nice.
Great. I'm looking at the letter signed by Mr. William Yamoa, addressed to United Television, copied to the CEO of Despite Media, the owner of Despite Media, and the executive producer of United Showbiz. Was it indeed sanctioned by the New Patriotic Party to be written to UTV?
That's a letter that came from the party. A private, or more or less, if you like, a private conversation between us, the party, and the media house to address certain observed concerns with their output.
Now, why would the party write such a letter to a media house, copy not just the CEO, but copy also the owner of Despite Media and the executive producer for that matter?
Well, I'm sure if you take away that the message on the face of the paper is actually on the paper and you assume it's a conversation, you will appreciate that it is normal to express concern with anybody or any institution if you observe that there are concerns with their output. And so it is not a strange phenomenon to say that as a body, there is some noticed concern with the output of the media house, and that as a party, we took steps to pen those and draw their attention to it for purposes of building together to enrich the content that we give our populace and ensure that it's balanced and it is proper in a way that everybody's interest is served, especially for purposes of information to the public. So it is not strange to have the party write that letter. I guess the point I want to make. If you want to assume that because it's on paper, it is strange, I just want to let you know that it could as well have been a conversation. But then the idea at that point was to write to them. And then besides that letter, there has been a conversation between us and the media house seeking to ensure that what concerns us, we bring it to their attention. So it's just a mode of communication rather than verbal communication that the party chose to write to the station. And indeed, the letter now is a public document, but it wasn't originally supposed to be for public consumption. It was a private direct communication with the station, which could well have taken place on a phone or in a face-to-face meeting.
Why did the NPP not choose to address the National Media Commission instead in a matter? Because if you look at the key issues that have been raised in the letter, you certainly are not happy about how the program has transitioned from an entertainment program into a political program. You're talking about representation. You're talking about the consistent attacks on President Akufo-Addo, Vice President Baomi, and recently Chairman Wontumi. That will fall within the domain of the National Media Commission to respond to, no?
Yeah, it could, but that will be escalating the matter. But as partners and stakeholders in the space, we thought that dialoguing amongst ourselves is a tool. I'm not sure you rule it as an unreasonable option, except that we could have done the Media Commission angle, which also is dialogue, except that now we have an institution mediating and ruling or judging the matter between us and them. We didn't think that it's gotten to the point where we want to activate that means, or rather engage the institution to enrich the program, essentially. That was the motive. Nothing malicious was intended in that.
Now, if you look at the angle of representation, Socrates Safo is a sworn NPP man. He appears on that show. Dinah Samoa is a sworn NPP woman. She appears on that show. Maybe until recently, Kwame A+, also a sworn NPP person who has recently declared that he's going independent. You can mention a lot more names that I have etc., who are NPP people who appear on the show. So where does the question of lack of representation happen? Is it a case that the party is not happy with the quality of people who speak or purport to speak on their behalf, or that the party just wants a certain kind of representation which they are not getting from the production team selection?
I am not versed with matter of who goes on the program or who doesn't. And then there is a general concern of the output from the program, which we have made aware the station that is concerning to us. Instances of direct insult and attack on the persons of the president and the vice president and other functionaries of the government is concerning. Now, where it is justified, perhaps people can do that, but in the nature of political conversation, insults and personal attacks don't have, they don't, in any case, contribute to the quality of conversation. And so when there is a trend of attack and insult, and we think that in furtherance of a proper political conversation that is focused on issues and policy and a proper framing of the matter that allows for discussions to then deal with the substance that either advances or do not advance our country is probably the way to go. So those concerns are what we have raised. Whether it is Mr. A, B, C, or D that advances one interest or the other, where our concern is that let it not be about insulting the president, the vice president, and members of government, but rather it should be about issues and where the government is found to be deficient. Let's discuss those particular policy deficiencies, and where government is seen to have done well, let's discuss those. So it is really in the nature of ensuring that the issues are framed properly, and not because we want Mr. A or Mr. B to be on the show. Because, Jenny, you will agree with me that when the issues are framed properly and people are called to contribute their insights to the idea of, say, we are building 111 hospitals and district hospitals, is that a reasonable policy to have? Then you are expecting a conversation where individuals will come not to insult, but to share their thoughts. But rather a situation where the issues are not framed properly, and individuals who come, because the conversation is designed to sensationalize, it becomes a conversation of insults and attacks, rather than about the issues. And we have that concern, and I'm just Friday I was on your show, and I made the same case, given observation from UK, where I just came back from last week, that they are having the similar conversation we're having in our country, because their country, like us, have been impacted by COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine war. Their position now is what is the government's prescription going forward, whether or not Rishi Sunak's 5-point plan is working or not. So that is the nature of the conversation. So those who come to it share their views, and then there is the responsibility aspect of asking the government to justify that, and the opposition that engages that issue to say the government has failed to show what their alternative would be. So then you're having a progressive conversation that benefits the country. So that's really the interest that we have, but not to be able to select the participants or the panel for any program or for any TV station or media house. Our concern is the quality and the framing of the discussion, so that our country benefits from these discussions to move forward and not to be mired in a back and forth argument that goes nowhere but revolves around insults and attacks.
The second paragraph of the letter dated 19 September 2023, addressed to Despite Media, says, I have been directed by the leadership of the New Patriotic Party to draw your attention to some recent observations we have made regarding the primetime program United Showbiz. This letter was signed by William Yamoa, Director of Finance and Administration. I know that the New Patriotic Party is not in short supply of lawyers. In fact, the current General Secretary is a lawyer. So is the National Organizer of the party, a lawyer, and many other persons. I mean, your Council of Elders, if you look at within the party, you have a lot of astute lawyers. Did the party leadership pay attention to the provisions in Article 162 of the 1992 Constitution that guarantees the rights and freedoms of the press before they wrote that letter?
Are you suggesting that the letter infringed or went against any provision?
I am not suggesting, I'm asking you a question. Did you consider the provisions in Article 162 before writing the letter?
Well, Johnny, I asked you that question because if you don't think that it breached any provision, then there's no point for the question. I guess that's the reason I asked you the question. So if you are able to answer for me that yes, the letter is breached a provision in the Constitution, then I can engage to answer it.
I am not a lawyer. That's why I'm asking you that you don't lack lawyers in your party. And I've told you in the National Executive, the General Secretary, Chief Scribe of the party is a lawyer. National Organizer is a lawyer. And this letter is supposed to have been written on behalf of the leadership of the NPP by the Director of Finance and Administration. So I ask you again, that did you consider the provisions in the 1992 Constitution, specifically Article 162, before this letter was written to Despite Media?
Well, Johnny, I think it's a kind of pointless question because if nothing has been breached, then the question does not arise. Whether or not there was a consideration given to it or not is irrelevant unless you are able to establish that a provision in the Constitution has been breached. The fact that a letter has been written without breaching any provisions of the Constitution does not warrant the question that the letter was written. Okay. The letter was written, as I've established to you, in furtherance of a relationship that we have as stakeholders in the media space and the communication space to say that we have an observed concern about ABCD. We are not alleging anything. We're just engaging in a conversation to enrich the conversations that come out from the media house to say that, can you do ABCD? Can you pay attention to this and that? That cordial discourse is not in breach of anything because we are not taking any action that is hurtful or injurious to the media station, but to have a conversation. And I don't think that merely having a conversation constitutes a breach which you yourself have not established. So I don't think that the question of whether a provision of the Constitution was considered or not is material in the matter.
Let's pay attention to the provisions in the Article 162. There are 6 provisions. The first one, Article 1, Clause 1 of Article 162 says that freedom and independence of the media are hereby guaranteed. Now, go on to 4, that says that editors and publishers of newspapers and other institutions of the mass media shall not be subject to control or interference by government, nor shall they be penalized or harassed for their editorial opinions and views or the content of their publications. In this case, United Showbiz. Now, how do you situate your last comment within this context of editors and newspapers being free from control and interference or harassment or a penalization because of their opinions, views, content of their publication? How do you situate your last comment in this?
Yes, so I guess that's why I was asking earlier to establish for me if you think that the letter breached any provision of the Constitution. But whilst you are not able to establish that, I will restate my answer to you from earlier, which says that as partners, we feel that we observe anything that is of concern to us in good spirit, will engage in dialogue to try to have the media station pay attention. In like manner, if they see anything that we're doing that is possibly concerning to them, they are at liberty to write us. The fact that they write us or we write them doesn't mean that we have taken over this program and are trying to empanel for them or try to run it for them or somehow or rather try to stifle the program from having its airing. So I think that the particular issue that you are raising really doesn't arise because the letter, it is only designed to draw attention and see possible means for consensus rather than to breach any provision. Because if we were intended to do so, there probably would be no need to even write a letter. Action would have been taken without recourse to dialogue. So yes, the provisions are there, and we are minded by it, and that's why we're engaging and not doing anything contrary to the provision. So that question, really, if you want to ask another question, the final question in this particular case, with reference to the constitutional provision,
I'm looking at the letter now. The heading of the letter says, Reform United Showbiz Program. Reform United Showbiz Program. So it is not a question of suggestion. It is not, it's telling you to reform the program. That is the tone in which the heading of the letter was written. Reform United Showbiz Program. What did the party mean when it wrote that?
It's a conversation to say that take a look at ABCD because we think it's concerning to us. That is the pure spirit. Of course, it's open to interpretation for you to put any number of spin on it to say it's a directive, it is command, it is everything else. But our intent is to appeal to the station as partners in the communication space to take a certain action which we find useful given our concerns for their output. So there isn't any pun intended in that. Our goal is to just communicate with them. You can interpret our reference or usage of the word to mean one thing or the other, but our motive is clear, and it is only to elicit their attention for a certain action we think we want them to take.
You also state in the letter that the United Showbiz platform appears to be operating as a platform that serves the interest of the opposition National Democratic Congress. It is evident to any discerning viewer who has followed the program in recent weeks that its content has significantly deviated from its original purpose and relevance. What did you mean by that?
I think that on the surface of the paper, what you read means exactly what it is supposed to say. That's the concern with the output that is coming from there, our take on the matter. I can give you an example. I think I just gave it to you. Actually, it's not only serving the interest of the NDC, which perhaps is parochial, but I'm looking at a broader issue of being a disservice to the country in a sense that it allows the NDC to evade responsibility and an opportunity to actually contribute what their thought is on certain issues of national development. And that program being an entertainment program that does not have political representation in the true sense for direct policy discussion, then thinks the government in a certain way without the opportunity to explain and expand the issues on the merit of policy, okay, and then also demand that there's some accountability in the discussion. Because if you just go and say, oh, government has messed up in A, B, C, D, perhaps from an entertainment standpoint, there's no opportunity for proper analysis of the issue in terms of the policy objectives and the attainment of whatever success the policy would have attained in that conversation. It was only supposed to be an entertainment program that deals with matters within the entertainment space. But what it has become actually serves the political interest of the opposition because it really just ends up, castigating government without recourse to, the policies that are generating a certain outcome, which perhaps given time would produce a positive outcome. It's more like exactly. Just 1 second.
Right.
So it's more of creating a situation where you are saying something about somebody and the person is not in the room to be able to defend themselves. But what you are saying is benefiting somebody who, whether or not they have an opportunity to be in the room or be outside the room, will benefit from what you're saying because you paint the other person in a certain bad light, and therefore the other person is able to gain advantage from that. And I think that it was a simple concern that we're trying to communicate and see, so that if we can engage to find a way to have the program focus on its objective and then be able to do so in a way that is balanced, that is not commanding, that is not taking away their rights to free speech, but it is only trying to engender an atmosphere of dialogue to make sure the program serves its true purpose.
Do I get a sense from you that your definition of an entertainment program restricts it to musical performances, drama, comedy, etc.? So issues of policy and laws that relate to what they do and manifesto promises that relate to the industry within which they operate cannot be discussed by those same people who are entertainers?
It should be discussed. And so that now, we have now Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture. And so maybe policies coming from that particular space is one that can legitimately be discussed by them. But the question is that what their preoccupation is? It hasn't been that. It veer off into all other things that is particularly political. You see, that you need political analysts or political commentators to be there, so that then possibly then the naming of the program is what is problematic, because then you have a situation where the expectation of the ordinary citizen, if you tune into that program, will be that you are here to be entertained. But then
but is that not the job of the National Media Commission so to decide? Why are you concerning yourself with something that is by law the work of the National Media Commission? That's why I asked you why you have not addressed your concerns to the National Media Commission instead.
No, Johnny, let me. I think that you need to be fair. What we are seeking to do, yes, of course, we can go to the National Media Commission, so I think we cannot. But I'm saying that escalates the issue to a point of confrontation. And whilst we have relationships with you, in fact, if you go on to go on that tangent, I'll tell you, we have been having conversations with your own media house. Okay, this is a matter of fact. We have been having conversations with your own media house. Why haven't we gone to Media Commission? Because we think that we have a relationship and we can nurture that relationship to build. We are not demanding, we are not commanding, we are engaging. Is sitting down, having a conversation. How can we build this so that as a country we all benefit from it? I think that that's the way of democracy. And so we are engaging rather than, escalating things to go to Media Commission. But of course, if it gets to a point where we have to, then we will. But we don't think that we are at the point where we just, haven't exhausted relationship avenues with the station, and then we just jump straight to Media Commission. If that's the case, Media Commission will be inundated with a lot of complaints. But we think in good conscience that we have a relationship with the media house. We'll talk. And we've met the media house on the matter. So, and your media house, I didn't want to bring that up, but I had to because of the angle that you're moving on. So these are things that we will do as a party in advance of democracy and good relationship to try to build consensus. And so it is not out of order that we are seeking that dialogue to try and enrich the program for the consumption of all.
Mr. Richard Ahiagbah, is the NPP not trying to gag the press, especially because at the last two Press Freedom Day celebrations, the president said he would rather prefer a noisy and boisterous media than a media that is silent. I still have that tape here. I could play that for you. But now, if the conversations are going around engaging media houses on reform and do this, that's not amount to trying to gag media houses.
So, Johnny, are you trying to suggest to your listeners that press freedom, media freedom happens in a vacuum? That there cannot be a conversation, there cannot be engagement? Is democracy which grants this right? Does it happen in a vacuum? And there is no conversation, there's no give and take?
That is not the suggestion I'm making. I'm making a suggestion to...
out to me.
No, I'm making a submission to you.
Creating.
So I am not the one creating the impression. If you go on Twitter now, you go on Facebook now, what happened and per that letter, and with the subsequent confirmation that you've also been engaging our media house, that's the impression out there that, look, the NPP is trying to gag the press. I want to give you an opportunity to explain.
So, Johnny, do you, in your understanding of media and and the freedoms that are guaranteed, do you understand that to mean that a political party engaging, expressing concern in a mutual conversation to say, can you look at that? Can you look at that? Do you understand that to mean gagging? Is that what your understanding is?
This is the view expressed
No,
largely out there.
Johnny,
I'm just bringing it to your attention.
No, okay. So I agree. I agree you are bringing it to my attention, but I'm asking you because your job is not only to bring things to my attention, it's also to inform. So when you have that knowledge that the people are misunderstanding what is supposed to be the way of democracy, which is engagement, and to mean that the media houses are being gagged, you then have a responsibility to educate and say that no, it doesn't necessarily.
And that's why I'm not saying it. That's why I'm not saying it behind you. I'm saying it right to you so that you can also respond. That's the essence of the conversation and this interview.
No problem. So my response is for you to also just tell your listeners that no, political parties engaging media to do A, B, C, D, it's not gagging, so that you validate the position which you know to be true. That these interactions are not to gag. If you ask your own management, when the last time we met, the conversations we had, we have moved on. And whatever our positions were not necessarily done, but we are moving on. It is in the nature of building and protecting our democracy. We cannot do that without talking. We have to do that through dialogue and conversation. And so that's exactly what we are doing. And I think that you have a responsibility, if you get that impression on social media and the rest, to say on your platform, which is widely listened to say that, please, that is not gagging, but that is in the spirit of advancing democracy and press freedom. Because these things don't happen in a vacuum.
I see.
I expect you to say so.
Socrates Safo is a Ghanaian director, filmmaker, and director for creative arts at the National Commission on Culture in Ghana. He's a prominent figure in Gollywood and the head of Movie Africa Productions. He appears on United Television. Are we suggesting that if we say the paneling may be problematic, intemperate language, and a deviation from what the program is supposed to represent, etc., and it's working in favor of the NPP, and a matter on the cultural policy of this government, or something related to amphitheaters or the promised studios or the arts fund or the platform where musicians can promote their music for free, which are all manifesto promises, comes up, Socrates Safo, who is a director for creative arts at the National Commission on Culture, is not qualified enough to articulate the views of government and the party?
Nobody is saying that. You know, Johnny, I think that you are getting this whole thing wrong, or perhaps your angle is what you're advancing. But I'm saying that nobody is saying that is wrong. But you must understand that, for example, when you see a program, an entertainment program, that the output consistently is more political than entertaining, then you should legitimately, if you are even a viewer of that program, you should have a concern with it, right? You should have a concern with it. But even that concern does not legitimize you to say that the program should be cancelled or not. But you have the responsibility to say that, can we focus more on the entertainment than the other bit that has become dominant? I think it's a reasonable ask to make, because your program now, even your listeners, if you would certainly make your program, which we know is about current affairs, if you make it about, a music request one day, your listeners would ask you why you are changing the format of the program and the content of it. So the idea is to say that if you have seen this program, entertainment, let it give us entertainment. But when it's giving us too much politics, then we are worried, even as of viewers, loyal viewers of the program, because that's not what you promised us. I don't think you are following or you necessarily disagree with what I'm saying to say that you promised us entertainment. When we come to enjoy entertainment, it's become too political than it's supposed to be entertainment. And so when that request is made, and we haven't gone to make that request in a manner that is commanding or taking away your right, it's suggesting to say that, can we take a look at this?
But Richard, you see,
entertaining.
Richard,
I need to take a leave of you.
Quickly, my final question to you. Everything is political. I mean, you mentioned earlier that we have a Ministry of Arts, Tourism and Culture. That is a political position, but it is in the interest of people within the creative sector. When you have your campaigns, you bring on Daddy Lumba, Sarkodie, Samini, Great Ampong, all those guys, Kwame Eugene, all of them to come and be on the stage. That is also political, but it is entertainment. So what is wrong if there is a genre of program known as United Showbiz that also would discuss, things that affect them as, first of all, Ghanaians who live in Ghana, who are feeling the economic crunch.
You've made this point severally, but let me just tell you, we don't have any problem with that. It is their show. We respect that right. All we are doing is to engage them on how we think that the program should run, because we are not only a political party, we are individuals who watch the show. And so in late night we want to relax and listen to entertainment. Entertainment should do entertainment.
But the problem is that this letter was directed by the national executive, and that's where the problem is.
Johnny, no, but the national executive of the party is engaging. I mean, I don't know. You want to proceed on a certain tangent, but what I'm trying to have you understand is that if you see your program, Current Affairs, and you turn around and you are playing music, sooner or later you realize that your viewers and listeners may not be interested, because if they are looking for music request and it's available in
Richard, that is not your business. Let the media house worry about their audience and viewership. Let them worry about. Why are you concerned about that?
I'm not worried about that. I'm only making an analysis to you, Johnny. Please allow us to have a conversation in the context of the matter.
Right.
I'm only telling you that if you feel your program entertainment, you should be offering entertainment. But if you're beginning to offer more politics than entertainment, as a political party, our concern is that political conversation, we have interest in it. But we don't have representation to advance our interest. And yet the thing is entertainment. So we can't bring Richard there to engage you when you are talking the political stuff. You understand? So look at it so that it focuses on that. Or if you make it a political show, then everybody knows it's a political show, so there's NPP, there's NDC. But if you don't do that, then we feel disadvantaged because you are talking about government in a certain way, then we don't have people there to actually be given the occasion to explain government positions.
Socrates, that's why I asked you,
that's what we're saying, Johnny.
That's why I asked you, is Socrates Safo, Fred J. Mensah, are they not enough?
Johnny, please, with respect, I'm not going to talk about individuals' capacity to explain or to discuss any matter. I am telling you from our standpoint to say that if an entertainment show becomes a political show, we want to know for sure that it's a political show so that we can urge that we too be represented. Because you're talking about us, and at least we are the government. And we need Ghanaians to understand what we have done or haven't done. Now, if you're having an entertainment show and we are not there, and you have individuals saying things that perhaps may be misrepresentation of the fact, then you are not being fair to us.
So if UTV or any other station for that matter decides not to listen to you based on the conversations you have, what will be the next step?
Well, we haven't announced any next step. Our dialogue with them is ongoing. And the last time we met with them, there's a positive outcome that we're expecting. So we are not in any particular way going to take any decision beyond the dialogue, which is what we have initiated. And I've told you also on the record with your own media house, our conversation with them, we met with them on 2 different occasions on certain concerns that we have, certain measures, steps have been taken to moderate and things like that. So we are moving on. There's nothing like we are going to arrest anybody or we are going to take anybody to anywhere, but it is for us proper democracy to engage, and we are engaging the media house to make sure that at the end of the day, the content output is one that advances the interests of our country. That simply is our interest.
Richard Ahiagbah, I thank you very much for spending your morning with us. He is Director of Communications of the NPP. We're grateful.
Thank you.
Great. Hey.